Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity. We're going to continue with answering questions from the jar today, but I am going to answer a question again that I pulled out. And I tried answering it twice, but every time I answer it, I go on and on for 25 minutes, and I know it's way too long. So I said I was just going to put up whatever came out of me, but I am going to try answering that question again and try to shorten it with it closer to the 10-minute time frame. And the question I pulled out is, what is social anxiety and how does it impact our lives? Social anxiety is a form of anxiety, and we know that all anxiety is a fear emotion basically related to the future, of what might happen in the future. It is a what if phenomenon, I guess. And the fear that people are, in a sense it's a phobia because it's related to something fairly specific. And the fairly specific thing this type of anxiety is related to is socialization, of being out there and exposed in a social form. So exposed is a really good word when we're talking about anxiety or talking about fear in general. Because what creates fear is this exposure to a threat, this sense of exposure and being vulnerable to a threat. The threat in the case of the person with social anxiety is society, is other beings. It's usually derived from a sense of not feeling worthy or good enough. And like all anxiety, this idea that we don't have the capability or ability to deal with certain situations, right? So in this case, the individual may feel that they don't have the ability to deal with socialization. They fear often, if we took the core belief and unraveled it right down into the subconscious, dug right down into the subconscious and unraveled all those core beliefs, we'd probably find a sense of unworthiness. I am not enough, and therefore people are going to see me as not enough. They're going to recognize I'm not enough, and therefore that causes the fear. So a fear of not being enough, an inability to cope with social situations, because what happens in a social situation, if you're not enough, you may be rejected, you may be criticized, you may be punished, you may be ostracized. And as human beings, we are social animals. We belong in a pack. It is our safety. So again, we have a double whammy of unsafety. I'm going to go in and expose myself to these mother lions, just the people that I have to expose myself. It can be like mother lion and you're on the Serengeti plain about to eat you. And at the same time, you know that if they eat me, or if they come at me, they're also going to ostracize me. So, because if they recognize that I'm not enough. So again, it's a feeling of unworthiness a lot of times that causes this social anxiety. And it's a fear emotion. It has a biological component, like all fear does. We have an amygdala in our brain that acts as a guard to warn us against, potential predators and stressors. And it sends off an alarm, and then we have the whole activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which I won't go into. But it's a very physiological reaction that causes all kinds of things to go on in the body just so that we can fight, flight, or freeze. It takes us away from the homeostatic state we're all supposed to be in, the rest and digest state of the parasympathetic mode, right? All stress responses are only meant to last for a few seconds and be gone, right? We get it triggered, fired. Let's deal with the immediate stress to, the threat to our survival. And then after that, we're going to shake it all off, and then we'll be fine. We'll just go on about our business. But a lot of times we can't shake it off, or a lot of times we don't shut it off, and we stay in a low chronic state of stress, waiting for the next alarm from the amygdala to go off so that we can go in that heightened state of anxiety or fear again. So that is like the chronic, to me, what I can see from looking around me, the chronic state of most humans is just to stay in this low-grade state, waiting, because anxiety is all about waiting for what might happen in the future, waiting for what might happen and being almost trying to be prepared for what might happen, just waiting for that alarm to go off, to be on guard. You get all your bags packed, you're ready to run as soon as the alarm goes off, and then everything is sending off the alarm, you know? Car beeps from behind you and you think they're beeping at you because you're not a good enough driver. That person walks by and they give you a look and you think, oh my God, they must know something about me that I don't know or whatever. And the mind just takes over. It starts with a very physiological response because anxiety is a body response more than anything, you know. Heart rate goes up, respirations go up, so you have a hard time breathing, blood pressure might go up, pupils are dilated, you're tensed up, shoulders up, fists, you know, you're just ready to fight or flight, ready to run, you're all curled up, iliopsoas contracts so that you come forward to protect the vital organs in the belly, and that's the reaction, right? And imagine being in that chronically for a period of time, and maybe a lower grade, and then just waiting to, okay, I gotta run now. The problem with any type of anxiety is not just the anxiety, it's just a fear reaction. Fear is just fear. It's just an emotion that comes in. And if we're open and free of samskaras, it will just flow right through us and be gone. But we cling to it because we're full of these past events where we had fearful things happening, right? The reason why we have a fear, because anxiety is fear of the future, right, is because something happened in the past. I may have gone into a grocery store and had a panic attack, a full-blown anxiety attack. It felt so unpleasant being in that store. I felt like I was going to die. I felt everybody was watching me, especially if you're a social phobe, because you know how you react in public, it's exaggerated in the brain, and then you become terrified of that experience. So what do? You avoid the next grocery store. You don't go into that grocery store again. Then you start avoiding all grocery stores. Then you could avoid all buildings, and then you could avoid going into the house altogether and be in total agoraphobia because of this social anxiety. It's really hard to avoid people, isn't it? And that's the thing. We're social animals. We need that sense of safety and belonging. We need that sense of loving belonging. So we need to be in a social pack. And being afraid of the very thing we need has a double whammy effect, does it not? Yeah, so social anxiety can be very, very pleasant for the individual. We used to call it being shy or timid, but we know back in the day when I was growing up, I was fairly shy. My life became quite small because I was afraid to do things where I would be exposed in front of other people. And I, never talked in public. I did my best not to talk in public. I didn't go out and socialize a lot. I still don't. That's become a part of my nature. But my life was limited because of it. And then there was one day I just woke up and said, I'm tired of being afraid. And I decided to do the Toastmasters program, and I decided to face one of my greatest fears, which was public speaking. If you have a social anxiety, getting up and speaking in front of 600 people can be very intimidating. But I got to the point where I could get up to speak in front of 600 people. My so-called shyness didn't go away. Still not overly comfortable. I still feel that discomfort that comes when I have to face these social situations. But what I've done is learn to deal with the discomfort. I didn't ask anxiety to be any different, because anxiety is just going to be anxiety, right? I didn't ask society to be any different, because society is going to be whatever it is. I've come to the realization through my own journey that, it's never about me really when someone doesn't like me or says something to me, or if they judge me or have an opinion or criticize me or, God forbid, heckle me when I'm speaking. It is them. They have their issues. They have their own samskara layers, and they're just acting through those. But when you're not there yet for social anxiety, a person with social anxiety, that can really have a great impact on you. But I have learned not to see that. I've learned to see that as their stuff, and I've learned to sit with what is, which is the biggest yogic tool anybody can have. Sit with what is. Sit with the discomfort. Sit with that feeling I get when I have to go out and do something in public. I'm still a person that doesn't, I will not go out of my way to socialize. I will not go out of my way to, if I'm walking in a crowd of people and I see someone down, I might know, maybe not if I don't know them well. If I know them well, I'll go over. But if they're at the other end of the building and I'm walking in and I see them, I'll smile, but I won't go out of my way to go over and talk to them because of my own, this learned behavior I have is still in the way. But I am more comfortable with it if they come over to me and we start talking. I'm more comfortable with being uncomfortable because I'm allowing the experience to be what it is. I recognize it for what it is. And I have learned to do a lot of work, and I still continue to do that work because I think that is very, very important work with those deep core beliefs that say that, we're unworthy. And I'm trying to turn those beliefs around, and I'm using all kinds of techniques and tools now to work with those core beliefs so that I can actually reconstruct the core beliefs, not just the thoughts that are in their conscious mind, but those deeper underlying thoughts. And they're more than thoughts. They're a collection of thoughts that become a belief in the subconscious mind, and I'm learning to deal with those to change those, so that when I experience this anxiety that comes with being in a social group, or even thinking about having to go out into a social group, it's getting much easier. So social anxiety is just a form of fear that can really have an impact on our lives. It can make our lives very, very tiny. To not the anxiety itself. The anxiety is not the problem. It's not society that's a problem. It's not the anxiety that's the problem. It's what we've done with those things we stored that were, if you'd experienced fearful situations in the past, and the emotional energy we stuffed and stored forms some scares. So now they keep getting bumped by all these other triggers leading to these anxiety reactions. But that's not even the problem. The problem is we need to stay open to what is, find comfort in what is, even if it is uncomfortable. That seems like an oxymoron, I know, but being able to sit with what is, being able to experience what is as it is, allowing all emotions to come in and out, and of course that often involves a purification or cleansing process of getting all that old junk out of there, that we've stuffed and stored, and going into our core beliefs and really experiencing and redirecting those core beliefs into something more life-enhancing and positive. Testing the comfort zones that we've built. You've got to push against your walls, so you've got to be willing to be uncomfortable. If you really want to deal with your social anxiety, you've got to say, okay, I'm so sick of what social anxiety, recognize what it's done to your life. It's made your life so small and tiny, and recognize that you want more than that, and you are entitled to more than that, and you deserve more than that. And then start testing your walls. Walk up against your wall. See how you feel. If it gets uncomfortable, sit with it. Push a little further. Get uncomfortable, sit with that until you're experiencing the life that you so deserve. Because you are not your fear. Your fear is just a closed version of this being you call me. And it's what your consciousness, which is expanded love, is staring down at. So you just have to remove your eyes from that and recognize that it's just this human you call me that's experiencing the anxiety. You are the one watching this human call me experience anxiety. And you are the one coaching this human I call me, or you call me, to test the walls of the comfort zone and expand into who you really are, basically. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I think I rambled, but have a wonderful day. Namaste.